Heavy Yeti here, and I just want to say sit back and enjoy. It's Christmas, 1994. You race down to the Christmas tree and open up them presents to find yourself the latest SNES game, Donkey Kong Country. Kong is back. We get to see him lead the charge this time, and he is no longer terrorizing Mario by kidnapping Peach. This time he is taking over his island and getting all them goddamn bananas that were kidnapped by King K. Rool and the Gremlins. The game was an immediate success, selling more than 9 million copies, and back in 1994, that is a shit ton of copies, making it the third most successful game on the SNES behind Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World. Nintendo were onto something here, backing Rare Software Company and putting their faith in the relatively unknown company. Rare were pumping out the games, doing 20 to 30 games a year back in the late 80s and early 90s, making WWF games and Battletoad games left, right and centre. Then Nintendo said, hey, how about we buy 50% of your company and you make Donkey Kong Country? And then they said no. So Nintendo said, hey, how about we buy 49% of your company? And they said, okay. It's a glorified platformer. The best games out at the time were platformers, with Mario games and Sonic leading the way. It was going to be another couple of years before we got Crash Bandicoot, and Nintendo were already miles ahead of their competition. So if the game is copying other platformers at the time, what made this game so popular? Why did we keep jumping out of the treehouse at the start of the level over and over for years and years to come? It's because the game had everything that it needed in it. It was a simple game that you can 100% complete in under an hour. The game tracks your time as well, so you can jump back in and compete against the clock. You try and find all the bonus areas in every level, and the game rewards you with a little extra lives and shows a little exclamation mark at the end of the level name to show you that you completed 100% of it. It's a game that actually gets progressively harder the further along you progress. Games today tend to overlook this. They go from nothing to Dark Souls 3 level of difficulty. But Donkey Kong Country and many other games at the time gradually increased the difficulty, building up the anticipation and tension to an ultimate climax and the feeling of accomplishment when you finally complete a level after 20 or 30 attempts. Now that only goes for the levels. The boss fights are the only downside to this. They're very simple. And it comes down to pattern recognition. After you die and you face the boss again, you know how to defeat them, and although it is basic, it's still enjoyable. You can complete the game without tearing your hair out. But if every game at the time had that, how did Donkey Kong Country set itself apart from other games? First of all, its look. The level artwork is immaculate. Each area of the island has its own environment, from the jungles, to the temples and mine shafts, to the forest, to the glaciers and snow caves. Then suddenly you're in the industrial district of the island somehow. And then eventually you make your way onto King K. Rool's toolship sitting in the cove of the island. The detail in the environment is amazing too. It looks better than games today, and much better than most of the games in the 90s. It shows that less is more. It's a 2D platformer that has stood the test of time. The big difference that we take for granted at the moment is the 3D character sprites. It hadn't been done prior to Donkey Kong, and the few times companies tried to do it, it was shithouse and buggy. But the characters are unique. The boss battles are fun and not too hard. And this isn't even the main reason I think Donkey Kong Country is one of the greatest games of all. The game is one of the greatest games of all time for one reason and one reason only: the music. From the moment you load the game and the rare logo loads and the Cranky Kong is cranking his music, you're hooked and you feel ready to go. Then BAM! Donkey Kong jumps in with some rap music, which just screams early 90s. But everyone can hum the level music, and every single level, without question, has an incredible background music to accompany it. The moment you enter the water level, you had that slower, calmer, ominous tone-setting music. But then when you face Naughty the Beaver who stole your bananas, the tempo is lifted and a sense of urgency is created. The music is up there with Zelda Ocarina of Time, but this was just the norm for music in the gaming during the 90s. Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and of course Zelda having these amazing soundtracks. Donkey Kong Country was not only up there, but there is a case for them to be leading the charge. There are no cons to the game either. It was just perfect at its release, and it plays really well today, 27 years after its release. You may argue that Donkey Kong's controls are a bit janky, but that's just part of it. You don't like the way it controls, you switch to Diddy Kong. But Diddy Kong can't attack certain gremlins. Okay, well, so you switch back to Donkey Kong. It makes you use both characters to finish the game, something we see in the following Donkey Kong games. The nostalgia boner was fully erect with this one, guys. The music, the platforming, the artwork. Out of